President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia, Vice President Han Zheng of the People's Republic of China, Moderator of the plenary session, Alexandra Suvorova. Good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome you to the plenary session of the Eastern Economic Forum. This year, the theme of the forum is the Far East 2030, joining efforts together for creating new opportunities. Mr. President, for many times now you've said that the 21st century's priority is the development of the Russian Far East, what has been done, what is yet to be done, how is Russia building its relations to the countries of the region. We'll search for the answers to these questions together, but before that, as is tradition, I would like to invite you to the podium, Mr. President. Over to you. Distinguished Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, distinguished Vice President Han Zheng, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome all the participants and the guests of the 9th Eastern Economic Forum. Russia and Vladivostok, in particular, as a tradition, hosts business people, technical and scientific teams, CEOs of leading companies and officials in the early September. Those experts and entrepreneurs who show interest in the Russian Far East, as well as interest in the infinite opportunities this unique part of our country is opening up for creation and for mutually beneficial partnership. As we know, the development of the Russian Far East has been defined as our national priority for the whole 21st century, as our moderator has just pointed out. And life itself has confirmed the aptness and the importance of this decision. The challenges we are facing recently, as well as the trends we are witnessing in the world economy, all of that is testimony to the aptness of our decision. We see that business ties, trade routes, and vectors of development are reorientating towards the east and to the global south. And our Far Eastern regions provide us with a direct gateway to these promising and developing markets. They allow us to overcome the barriers some Western elites are trying to impose upon the whole world. And what's most important, the Russian Far East is a great space which helps realize your entrepreneurial initiative and launch projects, build new industries. The Far East, without exaggeration, is right now the most important factor for reinforcing Russia's positions in the world. It's the flagship of Russia in the global economic reality, and our future, to a large extent, will be dependent upon how fast the Russian Far East is developing. And this theme brings together around 100 events, panel sessions, and roundtables taking place as part of the Eastern Economic Forum. The forum brings together representatives of more than 75 countries and territories. These discussions are accompanied by substantial business dialogue. They result in concrete investment solutions and trade agreements. Just during the last 3 forums, more than 1,000 agreements have been signed to the tune of more than 10.5 trillion rubles. The Eastern Economic Forum has turned into a well-recognized platform for creating business ties and for discussing strategic issues related to the development of the Russian Far East and the Asia-Pacific as a whole. During my speech and my remarks, I'm going to talk about some concrete steps towards this goal. I'll talk about our proposals to foreign partners in terms of reinforcing investment, trade, production and technological cooperation in the Asia-Pacific. I'm also going to talk about the results as well as the plans we've got in economy, in infrastructure, and in the social sphere in the Russian Far East. I'll talk about raising the standards of living for the citizens of Russia living here. I'd like to remind you that starting from 2013, we've got a new strategic partnership as well as a comprehensive development strategy for the Russian Far East. This approach has turned out to be efficient over the last 10 years. We have either launched or are planning to launch more than 3,500 industrial, infrastructural, and technological, as well as educational projects. We see that the investment in the Russian Far East is growing 3 times over the last 10 years. It's 3 times as high as the average across Russia. And we see the outcome of this investment. We've got around 1,000 new enterprises, 140,000 new jobs. The industrial output dynamics in the region is 25% higher than on average across Russia since 2013. We've got 16 advanced development territories, and the free port of Vladivostok special preferential regime has been set up in the Kuril Islands, as well as a special administrative district on Ruski Island, which is hosting this forum. Incidentally, this district has allowed us to get assets back to Russia from offshores and from foreign jurisdictions to the tune of more than 5.5 trillion rubles. More than 100 companies are currently residing in this district, and we're going to move forward and forge ahead, improving the business climate in Russia and in the Russian Far East in particular. We're going to stick to new, more efficient approaches to cooperating with our foreign investors here. During the last Eastern Economic Forum, we announced the establishment of international advanced development territories in the Russian Far East. They should provide globally competitive conditions for foreign investors, especially from foreign friendly countries. The first international advanced development territory is scheduled to be set up here in Primorsky region. Our Chinese partners are showing a great deal of interest in that, as well as the Republic of Belarus, which can participate in building a new deep-water port here in Primorsky district. And I would like to ask the Russian State Duma and the government to accelerate their work on the draft law which is required for setting up such advanced development territories. Another factor is another regulatory decision we are about to make. Starting from September the 1st this year, our legislation stipulates the possibility of using foreign standards in design and construction. Of course, I'm referring to the standards of those countries where the resilience and security requirements for construction works are at least at the same level of as ours, or stricter. I do hope this approach is going to be implemented here, in particular in the advanced development territories in the Russian Far East. Another important testimony to cooperation with foreign partners is the development of Bolshoy Ussuriysky Island in Khabarovsk region. We intend to build big logistics companies here, border checkpoints, build new roads. In May this year, during my state visit to the People's Republic of China, our Chinese counterparts and we have agreed to work jointly on this project. This will give a powerful impetus to the development of Khabarovsk and the region as a whole. I would like to ask the government to work through all the organizational and financial matters to start implementing this plan starting from next year, 2025. Of course, one of the key issues for launching initiatives in manufacturing, in residential construction and development, and in upgrading the transportation network, we need to have in mind the supply of energy. The electricity consumption in the Russian Far East is growing. Right now it stands at 69 billion kilowatt hours per annum. By the end of the decade, it's going to rise to 96 billion, and some settlements and districts and big investors are running into shortages of electricity, which puts a constraint on the construction of new residential areas and industrial facilities and infrastructure. I've already instructed the government to work with our big energy companies and business circles to draft a long-term program for developing the energy capacities in the Russian Far East, and we need to provide the tools for project funding. And through this program, we need to remove any shortages we anticipate in electricity supply in the Russian Far East. First and foremost, through commissioning new electricity facilities such as Nizhny a hydropower plant in our Morsk region. It'll provide energy to the region and to the eastern polygon of the Trans-Siberian Railroad. It'll help protect the territories against freshets. And I would also like the government to think about building NPPs in the Russian Far East. We spoke about that yesterday. And this plan should take into account both the current needs as well as the needs we anticipate in future among the business and our citizens. And of course, it should take into account the long-term goals. And it should also reinforce the transportation and logistical capacities of the Russian Far East. The most important project in that regard is the expansion of the Eastern Polygon. Over the last 10 years, both in the Trans-Siberian Road and Baikal-Amur mainland, we have laid more than 2,000 and have upgraded more than 5,000 kilometers by the building or rebuilding more than 100 bridges and tunnels through Lena, Bureya, Selinga rivers. By the end of this year, the throughput capacity will have risen to 180 million tons. This year, we have opened a new third stage for the development of this transport network. We have already started doing that. We need to remove the bottlenecks, commission more than 300 facilities, such as the relief roads for Severomurski, Kuznetsovsky, Kodarsky tunnel, as well as the bridge over the Amur River. But of course, this is even a more large-scale task because we need to create a second main track along the length of all of the Baikal-Amur mainland. We need to create 2 tracks for the Baikal-Amur mainland, and we have to electrify it along all of its length. In the next 8 years, we need to lay 3,100 kilometers of the railroads. Just to draw a comparison, it's the same length that was laid when the Baikal-Amur mainland and the Trans-Siberian Road were built, and the same as was laid when the Baikal-Amur mainland was being constructed from 1974 to 1984. So currently we are building a project which, in terms of its scale, is bigger than the biggest infrastructural project of the USSR, which used to be built by all the republics of the USSR, and their forces were very strained back then. So like the Trans-Siberian Road, we need to build a new road transport corridor from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok. And I'm not just talking about increasing the throughput capacity and improving the quality, because it'll also give an impetus to internal and domestic tourism, because this road is going to go through dozens of Russian regions. There are several stages. Last December, a new road was built between Moscow and Kazan. By the end of the year, it will have stretched to Yekaterinburg and then onwards to Tyumen. There are going to be built bypasses for Omsk, Novosibirsk, Kemerovo, and Kansk. Further on, once the road has reached Vladivostok, this corridor will have stretched by more than 10,000 kilometers, including connections to border checkpoints with other countries. I'd like to remind you about the instruction I gave in my address to the Federal Assembly, namely to decrease the queues at the border and decrease the time for inspection of freight transport. It should be no longer than 10 minutes. In the railroad checkpoints, we have already reached a very good rate in terms of the time needed for inspection. In the Eastern Polygon and in other roads, railroads and roads, we have already started large-scale works, engaging professionals, engineers, designers across different regions of country. And through their dedication, they show that Russia is willing and can build fast and at a high quality, implementing infrastructural and transport projects of a national and global scale. I refer in particular to the Northern Sea route as an international logistics route. Over the last 10 years, the cargo throughput has increased by whole magnitude. Back in 2014, the cargo throughput stood at 4 million tons, whereas last year it rose to 36 million, which is 5 times the record registered during the Soviet times. We are going to improve the throughput capacity, in particular through exploring the Arctic mineral deposits, reorienting the cargo, and increasing the transit. We have a big plan for developing the Northern Sea route, building icebreakers, increasing our satellite constellation, improving the coastal infrastructure, building emergency and rescue centers to pilot these logistical routes. 2 years ago, we launched coastal voyages along the Northern Sea route. Right now, this voyage includes 14 ports in the Russian Northeast, the Arctic, and the Russian Far East. Last year, the capacity of the Russian ports in the Northern Sea route exceeded 40 million tons. This is but the beginning. We're going to increase these capacities further, modernizing the transshipment capacities, expanding the close and far-distance railroad connections, which will allow us to increase the capacity of the Murmansk transport hub to 100 million tons, and then even higher than that. Our Eurasian integration partners are interested in developing Murmansk as a transportation hub. Our colleagues in Belarus are contemplating the development of port infrastructure and building their own terminals on the Kola Peninsula, and would like to invite other countries to participate in this project. And I think, and I see there is an interest there. All large-scale transportation and logistics initiatives Russia is pursuing are built using cutting-edge engineering, digital and environmental solutions, which creates an additional demand for the products produced by Russian machine builders and metal companies. It also creates a demand for the services provided by science and high-tech businesses based on cutting-edge approaches, taking into account the new level of quality of technological, economic, and educational capacities of the country. We need to pursue the strategic task of developing the Russian Far East. In particular, we need to further explore the subsoil resources of the Russian Far East, because currently all of Russian tungsten and tin, fluorite, as well as boron-containing ores are produced in the Russian Far East. It accounts for 80% of all of Russian diamonds and uranium, more than 70% of silver, and 60% of Russian gold. There are other key centers for production of these resources in Yakutia and Chukotka. There, the deposits have been explored for quite some time, and their capacities are limited, whereas the demand is constantly growing. So we need to ensure both the export and the domestic market. We need to ensure this resource sovereignty of the country. We need to provide uninterrupted supply of commodities and raw materials for our economy, for our settlements, providing them with fuel and commodities. We need to use most efficient Russian technologies and scientific discoveries in environment and management of natural resources. When I spoke here at the forum last year, I instructed the government to draft specific programs for surveying the mineral resources of the Russian Far East and Siberia, They should be part of the federal project, geology, reviving the legend. These programs are ready. We estimate that 1 ruble of government expenditure is going to attract 10 rubles of private investors, and this money is going to be paid back, and the profits are going to be great. There's going to be comprehensive effect, but we need to do that timely, understanding the timing of the investment. So I'd like to ask the government to provide the necessary funds in the federal budget for the next triennium at a level which is adequate for the goals we are pursuing, because we need to improve the geological surveying of the Russian Far East by several times. I talk about titanium, lithium, niobium, and rare earths, which are requisite for the economy of the future. We have all of those resources available. The potential of these industries will improve the attractiveness of the regions, create new jobs, improve connectivity and logistics. The potential is great. Will help create cutting-edge creative industries in the Russian Far East, help build the infrastructure for the big data economy and AI, for piloting UAVs for commercial purposes and civilian purposes. In order to tap the technological progress potential, we will continue to improve the scientific and educational potential of the Russian Far East. This region has already launched the construction of university campuses in Yuzhno-Sakhalinsk and in Khabarovsk, but that is not sufficient for the Russian Far East. I suggest we should embark upon several new projects, such as university campuses in Ulan-Ude, Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, and Chita. A new batch of construction is going to be implemented here for the Russian Far Eastern Federal University in Vladivostok. It'll have all the conditions for youth entrepreneurship and business incubators. We'll also develop universities in the Arctic. Apart from Archangel campus, we'll build a similar project in Murmansk. Also, on the basis of these campuses, we will launch cutting-edge engineering schools. 2 such schools in Sakhalin and Vladivostok have already been set up. They are meant not just to train specialists for industry and agriculture, transport and social sphere, and for the AI. They are also meant to come up with original innovative solutions for scaling new solutions in social sphere and management and in economy. Russky Island has been hosting the Scientific and Technical Center of Rushydro for the last 2 years and specializes in innovative solutions in global energy, which are used for the technological upgrade of the energy sector in the Russian Far East. Our leading companies will also help build a big, innovative technological hub on Russky Island based on the Far Eastern Federal University. It'll concentrate on research and practical solutions in marine engineering, biotechnology, biomedicine, and other promising avenues to be pursued. I would like to ask the governments from the government and from Primorsky region to use the tool of a Far Eastern concession for the implementation of this project. I would also like to ask them to think about the tools for attracting scientists from Russia and from other countries. I refer to competitive motivational projects as well as the social packages for the specialists and their families.
Distinguished colleagues, we understand the success of implementation of our plans here in the Russian Far East and all over Russia depends first of all on people, on Russian families. I have said many times, we should not be guided by old logic. First we build plants and factories, and only then we'll think about those who work in these enterprises. Such logic is not just. It does not function in the modern economy, in the economy of the future that is being constructed around people. That is why, together with the new economic plans for the Russian Far East, we have also started major social initiatives. We have launched the mechanism of a unified subsidy. Thanks to it, we build and repair schools, kindergartens, clinics, hospitals, sports facilities. Urban environment is being improved as well as infrastructure. Today, we have already built almost 2,000 social and infrastructure facilities. Unified subsidy has become a powerful financial leverage for the mechanism of a Far Eastern concession. Its task is to attract private investment to social projects. Business companies have already invested more than 120 billion rubles for these purposes, and 36 such initiatives are already being implemented. For instance, here in Primorsky region, a year-round ski resort is being built. In London, National Museum and Theatre, in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, a new public center is going to appear. In Khabarovsk, an art museum. In Magadan and Chita, sport facilities are being built. There, in Chita as well as in Birobidzhan, urban lighting is being fully modernized. Of course, we'll continue to support the work of Far Eastern concession. We'll keep adjusting it for the benefit of citizens and for the opportunities of business. What I would like to underline as well, today, in the context of the state and private partnership, schools, airports, bridges, highways are being built all over the country. Public transport is being renewed, but the volume of such projects is not very high, less than 3% of GDP or 4.4 trillion rubles. To develop this sphere more intensively, we need to improve relevant legislature and the mechanism of work of the state and private partnership. We should make the risks for all the parties, the authorities and the business, transparent, and they should be divided in a just way. For instance, when we implement publicly important projects, knowing the experience and established practices on the projects of technological sovereignty, I propose that the Corporation of Development VEB.RF be one of the obligatory participants of the projects in state and private partnership. The corporation would control the system of risk allocation. It would confirm the benefit of the project for the state as well as for the business. We have already spoken about this with Sergei Ivanovich, and the corporation is ready for that. The same goes for the project of financing, project financing factory that stimulates private investment. So I ask the government, together with VEB, determine the specific parameters and scale for deals in the context of state and private partnership that should be implemented with the obligatory participation of the VEB. Going further, it's important for the private investment to be attracted, having long-term plans of development of industries and territories, as well as our settlements, cities, towns and villages for their comprehensive development. That is why we actively promote principally new instrument to improve the quality of life of people. They are called master plans. Many people know about it. Our Russian colleagues mostly know about that. We have already confirmed such plans for 22 administrative centers and urban agglomeration of the Russian Far East, where more than 4 million people live. For instance, for a satellite city of Vladivostok, this master plan will unite in one logic of development a whole agglomeration of Vladivostok, Artyom, and Nadezhdinsky district. And we should start implementing it since the next 2025 year. What is the specifics, the meaning of and the approach of these new master plans? We need to see what was done before on the local level. Economic and urban planning authorities were not interacting effectively. Economy, business were developing by themselves mostly. Construction, utilities, social infrastructure were separate. As a result, disbalanced decisions were made, and urban spaces were also disbalanced. Now, the region and local administrations have had a series of discussions with the residents and business. They have found problems, determined the potential on all the fields of development for every city, and there is an individual long-term model for every city. In fact, in the context of one document, we have the concept of social, economic, and spatial development for every city, with commissioning of transport, utilities, energy, and other kinds of infrastructure. And I'll repeat, the integral task here is to improve the quality of life of citizens. This is our goal. The most part of the events of the master plans in the Russian Far East are already designed, but I need to say right now that 70 facilities will be commissioned until the end of this year, and then the pace of implementing these master plans should be increased. To point out federal subjects and bodies that are the most active in implementing this work, the Ministry for Development of the Russian Far East has created a special rating. The leaders in implementing master plans now are Sakhalin and Magadan regions, the Republic of Buryatia, as well as Kamchatka and Khabarovsky territories. I thank colleagues for the pace gained, and I ask to keep building it up. I'll point out that every year we will follow the dynamics of Far Eastern master plans. We'll point out the best regional teams and federal bodies so that the rest could follow suit and use their best practices. I'll add that we have made a decision about additional volumes of budgetary loans to implement master plans approved by the government. We have already allocated 30 billion rubles, and I'll underline this will be additional. There is a confirmed limit since 2025 till 2030, and I propose to allocate 100 billion rubles to implement master plan projects in our Far Eastern and Arctic cities. So above the limit that the regions can receive according to the standard distribution. Speaking about implementing urban development plans, we should not forget about forming new national projects. They're already on their final stage. Moreover, we need to allocate funds for the development of Far Eastern cities in separate sections. First of all, in the context of such national projects as infrastructure for life, effective transport system, family, long and active life, as well as youth and children. What else should be pointed out? Half of master plan spending for Far Eastern cities falls on extra budgetary sources. It means the investment of business, city-forming enterprises that are ready to build clinics, kindergartens, sports facilities, pave the roads, renew utilities networks, restore cultural monuments, and so on and so forth. As I have already said, we will support such investments of the business because I'm sure that building up the pace of transformation in cities, their share will grow. For instance, from the part of the strategic partners, big enterprises that have their social programs and actively participate in urban modernization where they develop their business. Their resources, capacities, and experience should also be used to make master plans a reality. Strategic partners can fully finance the building of social infrastructure facilities in a city, town, or a territory where the investment projects are being implemented. After they transfer such a social facility to a municipality or region, they can receive compensation through taxes, benefits, or other preferences, and I ask the government to determine the parameters of such a mechanism. I'll underline that the experience of the Russian Far East will be a basis to scale the practice of master plans. As it was pointed out in the message to the Federal Assembly, up to 2030, such strategic documents will be prepared for 200 settlements all over Russia. So we're going to scale this program. Now, 22 settlements in the Russian Far East, 200 settlements all over the country, including anchor cities that contribute to the strengthening technological sovereignty of Russia. Going further, comfortable urban environment and social infrastructure are an integral part of modern comprehensive residential development. Far Eastern investors implementing such projects have a right for preferences of the territories of advanced development in the context of the Far Eastern District instrument. Now it is being piloted in 7 regions. We plan to build 1,800,000 square meters of housing where almost 7,000 people are going to live. In the recent 5 years, the volume of annual the annual number of housing being built in the Russian Far East has doubled, and by the end of this year, we expect commissioning of 5,600,000 square meters of houses. important determining role is being played by the Far Eastern mortgage. As you know, we have distributed it also for the participants of the special military operation. The loan at a record low 2% rate can be used by young families where parents are less than 36 years old. Moreover, this Far Eastern Hectare program can be used by employees of the enterprises of defense and industry complex, teachers and doctors. The same goes for those who live in the Arctic regions. And we are going to prolong it till 2030. I know that there were discussions in the governments about the terms of such mortgage in the future, and I propose to put a stop here and preserve the rate for Far Eastern and Arctic mortgages without change, 2% per annum. I'll add that since last year, in Primorsky territory, families that have a third child born can receive a payment to repay their mortgage loan in an increased size, not 450,000 rubles as all over the country, but 1 million rubles. And we agreed that the payment of the same size, 1 million rubles, should be introduced for large families in all the Far Eastern regions where the birth rate is below the federal district average. And I ask colleagues to expedite the adoption of legal acts for this measure to start functioning since the 1st July of this year, saying retrospectively. And separately, I would like to dwell on very important issues for our families, for our citizens who live far away from the big land, in remote and small cities and villages of the Russian Far East and Arctic. Our task is to ensure regular, uninterrupted supply of these settlements, reduce the time and cost of cargo delivery. Last year, we have adopted a law on northern delivery. Now we're planning everything in a centralized way on a federal level, and it is being implemented and coordinated in the regions. The transportation and maintenance of cargoes, of light support cargoes, are being prioritized. The supply and delivery of the northern delivery can be supported by budgetary loans. We're also going to develop the anchor transport logistic network of northern delivery, including highways, railway stations, sea and river ports and airports. Since the next year, the United Sea operator of the northern delivery is going to start working. It is going to deliver cargoes to Chukotka first, and then will expand the geography to Yakutia, Kamchatka territory, Arkhangelsk region, and Krasnoyarsky territory. Another topic goes for the medical servicing of citizens who live in remote cities and villages. There are settlements in the Russian Far East where you can go only by railway, and they lack doctors for medical and professional examinations to provide medical help. Since September this year, 5 Far Eastern subjects of our federation, and the next year in the 8 subjects, a mobile consultative and diagnostic center is going to operate. In fact, this is going to be a train, and it will be a real modern clinic and a pharmacy on wheels with cutting-edge equipment and doctors that are going to conduct different kinds of researches. They'll consult with their colleagues from the leading scientific centers of Russia. They'll use AI technologies to form medical reports. And of course, they'll provide professional help, because all the citizens of our country need access to medical help, regardless of where they live. And I would like to thank RZD company, all the doctors, nurses, railway professionals, and other professionals that participate in this honorable and really needed project. And I ask the government to help the company to ensure uninterrupted work of this modern medical center and pharmacy on the basis of a train. One more thing, to strengthen ties between cities and villages of the Russian Far East, will continue developing domestic air connections. By 2030, as already said, the number of passengers in domestic flights in the region should grow up to 4 million passengers a year. I've already instructed the government to approve the corresponding plan of specific steps and events. Its preparation has prolonged, so I asked to make all the necessary decisions rapidly. Another important issue is the aircraft fleet. We need to build our own planes that should be reliable, of high quality, and we need the big numbers. That is why I asked to expedite the elaboration of passenger version of light multi-purpose Baikal plane. We need to launch its serial production as soon as possible. And the cost and technical characteristics of the plane should be competitive so that the price of the flights would be accessible for citizens. If the situation is different, then we need to subsidize it. Dear friends, in the recent years, the Russian Far East has become more attractive for the youth, for those people who want to learn interesting profession, for professionals that want to show themselves and their skills, their knowledge, that want to try themselves in the profession that they have chosen. There is an inflow of youth from 20 to 25 years to the Russian Far East in the recent 8 years. Our targeted measures of support have functioned. For instance, local teacher, local doctor, local medical assistant have functioned, and teachers and doctors that go to the Russian Far East to work in the towns and cities receive up to 2 million rubles, and mid-level medical workers receive up to 1 million rubles. We are going to prolong this program until 2030, and the payout ratio is going to be increased. It will be a double Far Eastern payout ratio. Another program goes for local cultural professional. It supports local clubs, creative centers, libraries, musical schools, museums, those people who preserve our cultural sovereignty, identity, our traditional values, those who educate our youth. And I ask the government to start implementing this program since the 1st January next year. And of course, if we speak about cultural professions that go to small settlements in the Russian Far East, they should also receive payouts with the increased Far Eastern payout ratios, as well as the possibility to participate in the Far Eastern mortgage program. There are new museums being constructed in the Russian Far East. For instance, in the context of this work, we are going to preserve the memory about the Kuril landing operation in the August-September 1945. It was one of the last battles of the Second World War. It has become the symbol of the courage of our soldiers and officers that defeated the fortifications of the enemy that seemed impregnable. Distinguished colleagues, the whole story of the Russian Far East, of this enormous region that covers more than 40% of our country, is written by committed, brave, strong-willed people. They explored and protected these lands. They preserved the traditions of indigenous people. They opened new places on the map of Russia. They built cities, factories, they paved the roads, they found deposits. Our predecessors that developed the Russian Far East were dedicated to their cause and to our fatherland, and the love for the motherland helped them to set really important big goals. Their heroism, self-sacrifice and achievements today inspire everyone for the deeds. Everyone, or different professionals, doctors, teachers, cultural professionals, teachers in universities, businessmen, all those who work in the Russian Far East are planning to connect their life with this region, including managers of the regional and municipal commons. Since 2022, there is a Muravyev-Amursky program functioning in this region. It trains the personnel for public service. It is also going to include Arctic. The program is in demand and the competition is very high, up to 80 people for a place. Young and ambitious people see that the development of the Russian Far East and Arctic is one of the most interesting and promising tasks before our country. That is why we're going to prolong Muravyev-Amursky program until 2030. I'll repeat, together, the authorities of all the levels, business community, public organizations, citizens, need to participate in implementing new national projects and programs for them to receive a wide Far Eastern dimension. This way we'll make a step forward in developing this strategically important region of Russia and improving quality of life of people. And of course, we're going to widen the ties of the Russian Far East and our whole country with foreign partners, states and companies, our friends that are interested in a solid, long-term, mutually beneficial cooperation. This way we'll continue strengthening the positions of Russia in the world, and I'm sure that together we'll achieve these goals without any doubt. Thank you for your attention.
Subscribe for more content.